All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of Texans Unfiltered. I am your host, Youngarigold, and today is a very special podcast for you guys. We have Tyler Dunne from Bleacher Report. He recently wrote a piece on Deshaun Watson, one of the most detailed pieces I think that you'll probably read about Deshaun, and I think probably the best Texans article, I would say, over the last 5 years. So, Tyler, do a quick introduction. Shout out your Twitter, obviously, where they can find you on Bleacher Report and things like that.
Well, man, thank you very much for those kind words in that intro. Super kind of you, and thanks so much for having me on to talk about it. I guess I'm on Twitter at Ty Dunne, D-U-N-N-E, and been at Bleacher Report writing NFL features. This is my fourth season. And before, I guess we're kind of working in reverse here. Before this, I covered the Bills at the Buffalo News, and then the Packers at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel for about 5 years. Went to school in Syracuse, from Western New York, just like an hour south of Buffalo, small town, Salamanca, Ellicott area, and then this is just what I've always done. Just love my job. It's great to sit down and be able to just learn about the game, learn about people, hear their stories, share their stories, and unbelievably fortunate that Deshaun Watson was willing to really sit down for close to an hour and get into a lot of stuff. I mean, as we were talking before we hit record here, it's just really rare. I mean, you don't really get that a lot in the NFL. There's just so much podium pushing and group interview pushing by teams. It's tough to really sit down with a star like Deshaun Watson for that amount of time to see what really makes him tick. And I think it was something he was open to, something he embraced, and it was awesome. I mean, I feel like we could have talked all day. He's just that kind of guy.
Yeah. It's very, you mentioned that how rare it is, and it is. I mean, especially given, the hoops that you have to jump through to be able to get an interview like this. But for Deshaun to sit down for, over an hour and talk to you, I think speaks, more to his character and who he is as a person. And then when you follow that up with the piece he wrote, I think you really get a true understanding of who he is and what makes him tick. And I think another part that you mentioned that I thought was actually pretty interesting just now was the fact that you were able to talk about people and, understand people and share their stories. A lot of times, and, hopefully this doesn't frustrate you, but, a lot of times now with media and writing articles and things like that, it's very rare that you get these genuine, authentic pieces. A lot of times it's, clickbaity, try to get as, many clicks as possible. But with this piece, you really went the complete direction. I mean, it was very authentic, and you wanted to really dive into Deshaun and understand how he works and what makes him tick and, what his mindset is on Sundays and, Quincy Avery. And I know you don't mention David in there, but, obviously his agent, who's a big part of what he is. And so I guess let's get into just the article itself. Tell me, I guess, what was your biggest takeaway when you sat down with Deshaun?
Great question. I would say, I think the biggest takeaway for me, going into it, not really knowing how he operates, how he's wired. We all saw Andrew Luck in his own division walk away like he did, and he was beat up, and we can all remember where we were when we heard the news that he was retiring, and we can all remember that press conference he gave where he just looked kind of distressed, not depressed, but just like empty. I mean, all the hits added up, and the game just took its toll. And if you look at Deshaun Watson, I mean, he's kind of had the same amount of injuries at that point of his career that Luck had, and seems destined for that kind of outcome. Where you have no choice but to walk away from all these hits. My gosh, he, had the lung, had the broken rib, had multiple torn ACLs, had who knows how many other injuries we don't even know about because he doesn't really talk about them. I mean, people didn't even know he was taking a bus to that Jaguars game. I mean, Quincy Avery said, they were FaceTime and he just couldn't believe he was on a bus going to the game that way. So I guess in my head I'm thinking, like, where's his level of concern with this all? And the takeaway was he's not concerned at all. He wants to play until he can't, until you have to drag him off the field. Deshaun Watson wants to play football. It's genuine. I mean, it's real. The guy likes to hit. He likes to get hit. It's who he is, how he plays. He wants to create. He wants to improvise. And I don't think it's just, blissful ignorance. I mean, maybe it is a little bit, but he genuinely loves the game. And as Quincy Avery kind of said, he can't see Watson ever doing what Andrew Luck did. I mean, he's going to want to play until he can't, which, it sounds like a lot of guys operate that way, but they really don't. I think now more than ever, what this game does to your body, and Deshaun Watson, frankly, doesn't care.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting, especially considering how close, in the division, it struck home with Andrew retiring. And, as Texans fans, obviously we care because, one, we've never had a quarterback as dynamic as Deshaun. And we saw the beating that he took last year, 62 sacks. I think it was 87 quarterback hits. We knew what was happening. And the fact that, Bill O'Brien's doing everything he can to ensure he protects him is fantastic. But it's just nice to hear that your quarterback's mindset is like, I'm going to go out there and make plays. And if, I have to take this hit to make that play, it's just kind of part of the game. And, it's just really interesting. So one of the parts of the article that really, I was just such a big fan of, I'm originally from Los Angeles. I moved to Houston the year that the Texans became a team. So I'm a diehard Laker fan. And my favorite player all time is Kobe Bryant. And it's funny because I often use Kobe as a comparison prior to this to Deshaun and what he does and his willingness to do whatever it takes to win. Can you expand at all on kind of what his relationship was with Kobe Bryant and kind of what you took away from, what he's talked about Kobe with? I know that Kobe visited the team in August, but, is that relationship established and beyond that now to where they're talking regularly? Is it very similar to the Justin Verlander thing, or is it, kind of more of a random thing?
Yeah, I would definitely say that the Justin Verlander relationship is a really close relationship, that they're getting dinner, they're watching film of each other. Deshaun Watson's picking his brain as much as possible. I mean, they're genuinely really close friends. Obviously, because they're both there in Houston, where he's not in the same city as Kobe Bryant. So I don't know. I don't think they really keep in touch regularly, but it definitely was a moment, an hour-long or so conversation that sticks with Deshaun Watson. I mean, he made that clear. Yeah, as the Lakers visited Texans training camp, and not uncommon. You'll see cross-sport visits like that from legends in training camps, but where it was different is Watson made a point to sit down with them, and they talked about a little bit of everything, and it kept coming back to that mentality that Kobe had, which is just so rare. I mean, I think that Deshaun Watson appreciated it, and here's a guy who doesn't swear much at all. I mean, there's people who swear they've never heard him curse. He's somebody who, it appears on a field, court, whatever, couldn't be more different than a Kobe Bryant. I mean, we've all seen all the YouTube clips of him just undressing teammates up and down verbally and not holding back. I mean, you love him, hate him, whatever. We actually talked about this a little bit too. He never heard this story. That book, The Art of a Beautiful Game by Chris Ballard. It's unbelievable. There's a chapter on Kobe where, he would take the worst kid on his high school team and play one-on-one to 100 every day after practice and just pummel him, 100 to 8, 100 to 10, just to, instill that Mamba mentality. And Deshaun Watson loves to hear that. So they talked all about the mentality, and I just think that it really hit Watson that, look, it might rub people the wrong way, but that's where people are kind of distracted and don't appreciate Kobe. And he is making teammates better because he is pushing you to a level you didn't even know existed. So in his own kind of way, in a football locker room, you've got 52 teammates instead of 11. He's trying to do that to the best of his ability. And then, talking to teammates, you kind of understand and hear how and why. I mean, Justin Reed, the safety, said after practice, Deshaun Watson pulled him aside, was explaining, hey, if you would just move this direction just a little bit in that coverage, you would have really confused me as a quarterback. So there's ways he's kind of bringing that conversation he had with Kobe to reality in Houston.
Yeah, no, It's weird because, Kobe had got such a bad rap towards the end of his career, where players didn't want to play with him and he couldn't land the free agents that, LA has grown accustomed to. And I've watched him his entire career, and it's really just the fact that he demands so much. I mean, it's really why him and Shaq didn't work, because Shaq was not the work. He didn't rely on his work ethic to be successful. He relied on his physical stature to be able to do what he does. And Kobe is like, man, if you could take what you have already and work extremely hard like I do, we can take over this league forever. And it's a great mentality to have. It's not something you hear a lot about. And for Deshaun to be able to take that and have that conversation with Justin Reid, and I know he's had conversations with the young wide receivers and things like that. So it really says a lot about his character and his willingness to do what it takes to win.
Definitely. And I think a big part of it, too, is he is figuring out who he can call out on the spot and who doesn't like being called out and embarrassed in front of teammates. And he said that he's kind of learned that some players do like being called out. Some kind of need that. It gets them going, and some don't. I asked him about his relationship with DeAndre Hopkins. Obviously, that is a relationship that probably matters more than any other on the entire team. And he said that Hopkins is somebody that he approaches more one-on-one. That, out on the field, there's no need to ever really do something like that, like a Kobe would to maybe a Shaq. But one-on-one, they've really gotten close.
Yeah, I think, and all that does to me just speak to his leadership, right? I mean, a lot of us have worked jobs where we have the manager that it's his style and that's it, and everybody's kind of got to, adjust and adapt to that. But, a good leader is somebody that can adapt to the personalities around them and be able to do whatever they can to get the most out of those players. And it seems like that's what the path Deshaun's taking, whether it's calling out somebody in front of everybody and then also understanding that on a one-on-one setting, he's going to get more out of having that conversation than he would in a group. And being a leader of a team, especially at the most important position in all of sports, at quarterback, I think that's, again, just something else, just another attribute that people, I don't think, realized about Deshaun prior to this article.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, yeah, he's cognizant of all of that, and the fact that all eyes are on him all the time, and that really means something for sure.
Yeah. So there wasn't a ton on Bill O'Brien in the piece. I know you did mention obviously about protecting Deshaun and Bill O'Brien. Obviously, Bill O'Brien gave you the quote of he doesn't give a shit about what you think he needs to do what's best for the team. That's literally Bill O'Brien's mentality. We've had him on the show. That's how he is. He comes off arrogant and as a jerk to media reporters and journalists, but really that's not the case. It's just more that he doesn't really need to worry about anybody else's opinion, as it really doesn't impact the locker room and what he's doing for the team. Did you and Deshaun at all talk about the relationship between him and Bill O'Brien?
Yeah, he says it's great. And, I guess going in, I wasn't really sure because it was fresh off all those sacks and hits against the Panthers. And, I mean, you watch a Chiefs game with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and it really is kind of like, smooth jazz. It's rhythm and flow. It's so quarterback friendly, passes that get you into a rhythm, and he never gets hit. And then you watch a Texans game with Watson O'Brien over the last couple of years, and for the most part, it's plays that can take a while to develop. He's taken a lot of hits. Granted, as O'Brien would tell you, that a lot of that can be on the quarterback, can be on other people outside the line, but it doesn't seem as quite quarterback friendly, let alone the fact that it seemed that it was going that Cole Sluck direction. It seemed like he was getting Ryan Grigson here with the lack of an offensive line. So, lo and behold, as we all know, on the eve of the regular season, he goes out, he makes all the trades, he gets Larry Tunsil, all of that, and that helps. And it does seem like Watson genuinely gets along with him. Back to the pre-draft visit in Houston that we wrote about, and how they kind of were blunt with each other, could talk to each other in a certain way. I think there's a little yin and yang. I think that O'Brien being so just blunt and gruff and just kind of in your face. Remember all the blow-ups he had with Tom Brady on the sideline, and Watson being a little quieter, calm, reserved. That they kind of had this relationship. They kind of complement each other in a way that I think helps.
Yeah, no, I think I think Deshaun and Bill O'Brien have a great relationship. I mean, you can see it on the sideline that Bill O'Brien approaches Deshaun differently than he approaches some of the other players. Coming off of an interception last week against the Colts when he came off the field, you could see that Bill O'Brien didn't get in his face and start shouting at him. He just had a conversation. So I think he understands, how Deshaun wants to be talked to and led. I think that they've had a great relationship since the pre-draft process, and we even saw it when Bill O'Brien, was in need of an extension. Deshaun coming out on Twitter and making sure that he made his opinion known that he wants B.O.B. to stay around. So I agree. I really don't think that there's any friction there. I think a lot of local media will do what they can when they need to be able to, I guess, start the rumor mill, but I don't think there's anything there. What is the one thing that you left out of this article that you would have loved to have added?
That's a good question. It was kind of wild, kind of interesting. Just like when we were talking about high school football, and obviously Deshaun Watson as a kid, he's creating all the teams in this Atlanta area on NCAA football, and fitting marbles together to emulate those offenses. And he's just infatuated with the wing tee and the spread and all these different offenses. So there was one point where I kind of prefaced it to Sean, like, hey, I know I'm going to sound like Uncle Rico here. Like, nobody wants to hear a writer, like, talking about their high school days, but it was just so awesome talking about high school football with them. I started describing, like, the team that kept us out from states, like the game before states, Oakfield, Alabama, up here in New York State, actually. And it was so weird. He, cut me off and was describing, the offense that he had in his head of this team that we played, and he described it to a T. It was insane. How all the offensive linemen are close together and they're running all these fakes and you can't see the ball. It was like he picked it up mid-sentence and exactly just took the words right out of my mouth. Almost like he had time to fit in a little high school New York State Class D Section 6 footage 15 hours away from him somewhere along the way. So, coincidental, but that was pretty wild. The dude just is obsessed with X's and O's to the umpteenth degree.
Yeah. And speaking of X's and O's, obviously, a local writer and reporter, Rivers McCown, tweeted out his, the breakdown of the Carolina defense. And I think the best part for me in that video isn't the ability to break down a defense. I think we've all known that Deshaun can do that. It was his composure at the podium when asked by Aaron Reese from The Athletic about the coverage. And a lot of times, when he responded and asked, do you know the coverage that they were playing? A lot of times athletes can take that opportunity to kind of show off and come off pompous and cocky in a way. Because he knew that Aaron, you could assume that he knew Aaron didn't know the coverage, but he was genuinely asking because he wanted to educate him. And he took that path of explaining to him and giving the journalist exactly what he would love to have. Those are the type of questions most journalists would love to have answered and have answered the way Deshaun did it. I thought that was just a great exchange.
Totally agree. It's rare. It's refreshing. Different. That setting does not lend itself to meaningful dialogue or detail of any kind. It's a show. It's a production. That's what press conferences have become. And, I'd say the majority of head coaches and NFL starting quarterbacks just kind of roll with a scripted, string of cliches, a word salad that will just kind of get them through and fill newspaper holes and blog posts, and they don't really, everybody's kind of just paranoid and terrified of saying anything. I don't know why. It's like that's such an opportunity it's not about the media. It's about your fans. What an opportunity to explain what the heck is going on out there. So why let that opportunity go? That's how Deshaun Watson really viewed it. And he just looked at it as a chance to explain things that, like, hey, if these are all people that are, the bridge from you to the fans, and he wants fans, he wants reporters, he wants everybody just to kind of know what's going on in his head. It's not like opposing head coaches are all sitting there on bated breath, like taking notes and are going to use it against them. They see the film. They know. There's no top secret, X's and O's lines of information that he just released to the public there. He's just explaining what happened. And I think we need more of that. I think that there's a reason that blew up online because it is so different. It is so rare, and it shouldn't be. So that was awesome, and hopefully we'll see more of that out of every quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I think it was the best part was the next press conference he had. He was asked about how it went viral, and he said, it's something that I'd love to see all of them do. And he specifically mentions Tom Brady and Drew Brees. I mean, it's true. I mean, sure, I probably wouldn't say that the average fan wants to understand and break down a cover 2 or cover 4 or what a zero blitz looks like. But the diehard fans, and there's a lot of us, would love to understand and see his mindset when he's on the field to understand what he's looking at and see what he's moving through and how his mind operates in that moment. And yeah, I thought it was really cool. All right, Tyler, I really appreciate the time. Thank you again for the piece. Why don't you give the listeners another shout out on where they can find you, and then also any other pieces that you're working on that is coming up?
Sure. Yeah. I'm just they're on BleacherReport.com, Twitter at Tyler Dunne. Yeah, they can check out any past stories we've done. We've done a handful this season. Just a great opportunity. I mean, that's why I just love working here at BI. They really give you the ability and the resources and the time to report and sit down with guys like Deshaun and get to know them. So it's been awesome. And we've got a few stories down the line, but really nothing imminent right this second. So we have me and my wife have a baby on the way. So I'm actually going to be disappearing here for a couple weeks. So that's where the focus is right now. But when we get back, I promise we'll have something on another quarterback. I'll just say a quarterback in the AFC coming at some point. So folks can check that out. We've got millions of people listening. We can't let the competition know what's going on.
No, I agree 100%. It's just like a coach answering a question about schemes, right?
Right. Isn't that great? I just talked about how refreshing it is that Deshaun Watson is like providing detail and actual answers. And here I am ducking and dodging and just exemplifying exactly what I don't like, which is really hypocritical.
But that's okay, because that's the business you're in, and it's a little different than Bill O'Brien, so we totally understand. Well, Ty, I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Look forward to connecting with you in the future. Good luck on the baby and the wife. Hopefully, many prayers and blessings your way that everybody's healthy and comes out happy, and I know you guys are welcoming a new addition to your family, so it's just going to be an amazing moment, and we'll talk soon.
Oh, man, thank you so much for that. We cannot wait any day now, so we'll see. And thanks so much for having me on, man. This was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Loved this episode of Texans Unfiltered? We'd love for you to be a Patreon supporter. Your support allows us to provide you with the best Texans podcast possible. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HoustonFBPod and everywhere podcasts can be found. And join our community on www.texansunfiltered.com or on Discord at Texans Unfiltered. Thank you for listening. Until next time.